Welcome to this Florida Department of Transportation training. Documenting results in the planning phase is part of a video series providing guidance for sociocultural effects evaluations for transportation projects. In this training, we will first review the basics for documenting the results of SCE evaluation in the planning phase. Then we will look at where and how to report the results so the information is accessible for decision making in the current project evaluation as well as in future project phases. Let's spend a moment recalling the steps in the SCE evaluation process leading up to Step 6, Document Results. At this point in the process, community information has been prepared and the study area for the evaluation has been defined. Potential direct, indirect, and cumulative effects that could occur as a result of the project have been identified, and recommendations to resolve any adverse effects have been made. Learn more about the steps in the SCE evaluation process by viewing on-demand videos on the department's website. These videos provide an overview of the process and instructions on how to prepare for an evaluation and assess potential effects, including specific considerations for the 6 SCE issues. There is guidance on identifying solutions to effects, and this video providing direction on documenting the results. Other videos discuss how to perform project-level demographic analysis and environmental justice analysis. Now let's get started with general practices to follow when composing the SCE evaluation documentation, starting with storytelling. Documenting the SCE evaluation as you would a story will help make the information more compelling to your audience, including reviewing agencies and the public. An effective story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and speaks to the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Visual imagery, which is the shortcut to the brain, can be used to deliver key information. Use maps and photographs to draw attention to information the audience needs to know and help them understand. To be an effective story, the information you want to communicate must be clear. This is done by using familiar, everyday words, providing only information that is necessary, and stating it in a logical sequence. Short sentences are preferable to long ones, which have greater potential to be unclear. Use an active voice for most sentences, and make clear in the sentence who is acting and who is the subject of the action. Thoughtful layout and design, including subheadings and bulleted lists, are ways to make information easy to find. These techniques are part of Florida's Plain Language Initiative and are required of all public communications and reports, including documentation of SCE evaluations. Learn more on the topic in Part 1, Chapter 11 of the PD&E Manual. In the planning phase, the SCE evaluation results are documented by SCE issue using online forms. In the forms, start out by describing the project context in terms of potentially affected population groups and important community resources. Talk about the data and analysis that were relied on, and about who from the community was involved, how they were involved, and what they had to say. Report key findings and conclusions on each topic discussed, including the severity of potential effects, any tensions relative to other aspects of the project, and what could be done to address effects. Present recommendations for resolving effects or a path moving in that direction, plus any community-desired project features learned about during the evaluation. Supporting information, such as community plans or surveys, that would be valuable to others through the life of the project, is stored in the project diary, which I'll talk about more later. The level of detail included in the documentation will vary from project to project and by project phase. For example, more detail would be expected for a project in the project development phase when the issues are in focus than in the planning phase when the issues are first being discovered. Only those SCE issues that are relevant to the project should be discussed in the documentation. If there is little or no impact potential relative to an issue, a short statement to that effect is all that is needed. Conversely, if there is potential for significant effects, as defined by the Council on Environmental Quality regulations, those would warrant more discussion in the documentation, as would situations involving multiple issues. Avoid stating the same information over and over. Instead, refer to relevant information reported elsewhere in the documentation. As the storyteller, our goal is concise reporting that effectively and efficiently communicates the evaluation findings and conclusions. And last but not least, when describing the project context, Be sure to identify the demographic character of the study area, including the presence of any population groups addressed in the non-discrimination laws and policies. In the section describing project effects, indicate the distribution of potential effects among the population groups in the study area and if any negative effects would disproportionately and severely burden any particular group. The documentation should show that input from affected groups was considered, particularly if the effects could be severe. For more information on this topic, view the Facilitating Equitable Outcomes video series on the department's SCE webpage. In this section, we will review the documentation needs for planning phase SCE evaluations and how to report the results in the department's environmental screening tool. In the planning phase, projects that qualify as Efficient Transportation Decision-Making, or ETDM projects, are evaluated for sociocultural effects in conjunction with two project milestones, the planning screen and the programming screen. You can learn more about the types of projects that qualify as ETDM projects in Chapter 2 of the ETDM Manual and Part 1, Chapter 2 of the PD&E Manual. These projects are documented online using the environmental screening tool Project Forms. This documentation is then used to prepare the project ETDM summary report. ETDM projects undergoing a planning screen are typically being considered for adoption in a long-range transportation plan, although some of these projects may already be included in the long-range plan. In the planning screen, the primary objectives of the SCE evaluation are to consider the feasibility of the project, bring focus to issues that will be examined in more detail later in the programming screen, identify opportunities to address issues, and the objective addressed in this video to document the results for use in developing the screening summary report. Chapter 3 of the ETDM Manual provides more detail about the planning screen. SCE evaluation in the programming screen builds upon the potential issues and solutions identified during the planning screen. I will point out that not all programming screen projects will have been the subject of a planning screen. The programming screen evaluation serves to further identify, refine, and understand potential project issues and solutions. The outcomes support the development of a scope of study, agency coordination, and public outreach to be performed in the project development phase. And, as in the planning screen, the outcomes are documented for use in developing the project summary report. For more details on the programming screen, refer to Chapter 4 of the ETDM Manual. The SCE evaluation results for a planning or programming screen project are documented in the department's environmental screening tool. Access to the environmental screening tool requires authorization by the district ETDM coordinator. After logging onto the tool and selecting the subject project, click on the Review Project pull-down menu under Tools. The Review Options page will load. Select the appropriate project alternative and SCE issue that you intend to document. If the same comment is applicable to multiple alternatives or SCE issues, check the box labeled Use Short Form. This will apply the same content to the alternatives or issues selected. When the preferred review options are selected, click Begin Review. You can learn more about navigating the EST in the Introduction to Environmental Screening Tool training video located under the EST Help menu. Next, select a degree of effect recommendation for each alternative and each SCE issue. The degree of effect takes into consideration the potential for both direct and indirect effects. This slide shows the degree of effect categories and associated color coding. The effects categories range from not applicable, no involvement, to potential dispute, applicable to planning screen projects, or dispute resolution, applicable to programming screen projects. The Degree of Effect Assignment Guide on the department's SCE webpage provides direction on selecting the appropriate degree of effect. Moving down the form to Review Options, you will find Project Effects. The Project Effects input fields are where the potential direct and indirect effects identified in the SCE evaluation are documented. The first set of input fields pertain to direct effects. In the first field, list community resources having potential for direct effects related to the selected SCE issue, and indicate the resource's level of importance to the community and the GIS buffer area it is located within. Recalling the guidance we went over earlier about providing only necessary information, only list potentially affected resources, not every resource that shows up in the buffer analysis. Next, describe the potential effects in the Comment on Affected Resources field, and identify any recommended avoidance, minimization, and mitigation opportunities. Continuing on the same form, the field labeled CLC Recommendations shows up for persons that are assigned Community Liaison Coordinator responsibilities by the district or MPO. This field provides an opportunity for the CLC to recommend actions for consideration in future project evaluations. Next in line are 3 input fields for indirect effects. In the field titled Identify Resources and Level of Importance, indicate the community resources having potential for indirect effects as a result of the project. Describe the indirect effects in the Comment on Effects to Resources field, and include recommendations for resolving any potentially adverse effects. The Project Effects form includes a place to indicate any need for future coordination and documentation. While this field is primarily used by the participating agencies, it can be used by the Community Liaison Coordinator to flag issues that a future project manager should be attentive to. First, indicate the type of coordination or documentation that applies to the project alternative and SCE issue by selecting one of the button options including No Involvement, PD&E Support Documentation per the PD&E Manual, Permit Required, Tech Memo Required, and To Be Determined. Use the Additional Comments field to provide further information about your recommendation. When all of the requested information has been added to the Project Effects form, enter your EST password and click Save to sign and submit the information. Although a cumulative effects evaluation is optional in the planning phase, if the SCE evaluation revealed this type of effect, you may provide related observations in the Cumulative Effects Considerations Review form. This form is located under the Review Project menu under the Tools menu. Select the appropriate alternative and SCE issue at the top of the form, then use input fields to describe community resources at risk and the resource boundary characteristics. Identify pertinent agency management plans and foreseeable activities that could affect the resource, and recommend any avoidance, minimization, or mitigation opportunities. Enter your EST password and click Save Review to submit the information. More information on this topic is available in the Cumulative Effects Evaluation Handbook on the department's website. The Community Desired Features form is used to indicate desired project features identified through public involvement. The form is also located under the Tools menu under the Community Coordination menu. If project features were identified by the community, type or paste the information under the Enter Desired Project Features field, and finish by clicking the Save button. The Summary of Public Comments form provides a place for the CLC to document public input considered during the ETDM project screening. Public commentary may have been collected during an earlier technical study or planning effort, as well as during the SCE evaluation process. This form is accessible to the ETDM coordinator and CLC before or after the review period for the project screening. Other reviewers may provide information for this form by contacting the ETDM coordinator. To find the form, look under the Tools menu for Community Coordination. From that menu, select Public Comments. 2 option buttons are available. There are Public Comments Available, and there are no public comments available at this time. Select the option that applies. If public comments are available, summarize the information and add it here. Submit the information by clicking the Submit Form button. Following the review period for the ETDM project screening, the CLC considers the SCE-related information received from the ETAT, the Environmental Technical Advisory Team, and finalizes the SCE evaluation. The agency comments Project Effects Report, located under Reports under the Project Effects menu, contains the ETAT's comments and recommended degrees of effect by issue. The CLC updates the summary of public comments as needed. Additional information collected during the SCE evaluation process that would be useful to the current evaluation or future project phases can be uploaded as PDFs to the project diary, located here in the Environmental Screening tool. Then, taking all of the information into account, the CLC prepares a summary degree of effect for each of the 6 SCE issues for consideration by the ETDM coordinator. The final piece of documentation for a planning phase SCE evaluation is the Project ETDM Summary Report. The summary report is prepared by the District ETDM Coordinator in consideration of the body of project information and ETAT commentary documented in the EST. Taking into account the CLC and ETAT degree of effect recommendations, the District ETDM Coordinator makes the final determination on the summary degree of effect assigned to each issue for each project alternative. Also included in the summary report is information for use in developing the PD&E study scope, such as required permits and special agency coordination. This concludes the training on documenting the results of the sociocultural effects evaluation. If you have questions about the SCE evaluation process or suggestions for a future training, please contact Dr. Rusty Ennemoser, State Public Involvement and Community Resources Coordinator. Additional resources and guidance are available on the department's SCE process webpage. Links to resources referenced in this video are listed on the following slides. Thank you for viewing this production of the Florida Department of Transportation.